Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. Today is a marvelous Monday. I have my friend William. You guys know him as I Am for I Am. We over there on Den.Social. You can join the Mighty Lair and join us in a great conversation over there as well. And he has an exciting idea. Actually, he's telling a story. This is another story. It's from the 80s, talking about how a parallel society changed government. And we are right on the cusp of October 1st, and there are a lot of things happening. We've gone over them. You guys can check out the videos we did, especially Happy Hour. Westwood and I kind of wrapped up everything we're looking at that's changing. Basel 3, Julian Assange is to testify tomorrow. The strikes in the ports, which we'll have I Am touch on that with his story. So grab a chair, jump in the live chat if you're joining us live, link and put a comment below if you're joining us later. We'll be right back with I Am for I Am right after this. Welcome back. How are you?
Good to be back. Good to be back. I'm good. How's everybody in YouTube and Xland?
I hope they are all doing well. I think everybody is patiently awaiting to drop the other foot. I know a lot of people, there were huge outages today in Verizon and some other platforms, or people were having trouble with not only their cell phone service, but Wi-Fi. I also had my mom's cousin send a message and said that their bank cards were down and ATMs were down as well. So we're seeing a little chaos, a lot of outages.
Our hearts go out to all those that are suffering from the hurricane,
Absolutely,
and the flooding, and it's horrible. I know
it is
a lot of
encouraging.
lives lost, and
Yeah, I did hear they were up to over, I think the count was over 600 lives. And they said really that just scratches the surface because they haven't been able to do full recovery efforts.
agreed. Yeah,
Really heartbreaking.
It's tragic. It is. I don't think anyone was prepared for that much rain, that short amount of time.
Well, there was only 6 or 8 inches of rain.
Right. I think it just, well, we have a dam failure, all kinds of
Right. The structure.
It just kind of all added up to one giant, kind of a 1 in 1,000 year flood type of thing for some, or 100-year flood for others. But as we grow our infrastructure, you forget that the runoff that was already there has been altered or changed. And sometimes you get these freak events like this that it hasn't compensated for those, or failures, infrastructure failures. It's horrible. It's horrible. Some of it could have been prevented. Some of it, of course, couldn't have been, or foreseen, I should say. So our heart goes out to those. I know there's a lot of people out there that are struggling.
It was encouraging to see, although FEMA and the current administration really drug their feet. I know Biden was really busy at the beach this weekend, so he was very busy, too busy to help people suffering in our nation and writing checks to Ukraine. But it was exciting seeing private entities and private individuals like coming together. And Samaritan's Purse, of course, coming in with truckloads of support. And then also just, I mean, they showed this one tarmac of like private helicopters. So people with their private helicopters were bringing in, water and supplies immediately, as quick as they could, to try to help those on the ground. So.
Amazing. That's kind of where it shows you that human spirit to lend a helping hand is still strong. Irregardless of what a government does or cannot do, or does successfully, how it ever helps. But the human spirit to help one another is strong. And, also those that are, it used to be laughed about, you would laugh at someone if they said, oh, I'm a prepper, like, but it's times like this is where you fall back on those items, and being able to have some kind of supply, or batteries, or flashlights, or whatever, you know, a week's worth of food, or 90-day supply of food, or
Yeah,
more to
or
help your
being
neighbor.
able to help your neighbor. I mean,
Exactly.
can you imagine if you were in that situation and you could, open up your 25-year supply thing and feed, neighbors on both sides, or maybe your whole street, and being able to help your neighbor. So that's a significant thing. So
Being prepared, and creating your own safety net, right?
yeah.
Yeah, for you and your community and loved ones. It's so true, so true. It's part of our spirit of survival, and we have to welcome that. We have to embrace it, and rather than point fingers and laugh at the person that says I'm a prepper, you just never know. That person might save you and your family's life someday.
Yeah, I know, and we really see the best of humanity when things like that come together. Like, we're in Tornado Alley in Oklahoma here, and when I was doing a lot of mission work, I was running the mission group out of our church. We had a really bad tornado come through, and I mean, people just came together, and it wasn't about like who brought what or who did what. It was just like, what can we all do together, and what's needed, and what can everybody, bring to the table. And you really saw just a lot of kindness, and people were happy to do it. They would work, I mean, till from dawn until dusk, and they were exhausted, and everything, but they were, because their home was intact, they were grateful to go help
Mhm.
their neighbor who their home was destroyed, and let that neighbor go, try to get help for their kids or do services or whatever.
Yeah,
And so that coming together is just really powerful as well.
yeah, it is. It is. Well, having said that, and following right along with being prepared, that's
Yes.
what today's segment's about. Um,
Okay.
a parallel society, on how a parallel society changed a government. And it's really not that far in the past. If you think, we're going to go to the 1980s. For some people are going to say, well, that's ancient. But it really isn't. Believe it or not, there are many case studies of a parallel system unseating, or altering, or changing a government. And we're going to go over one of them today, which I thought was really fascinating. But the real issue, fits right today, is this is our future. Our future is one of hope, because we can learn from the past, and we can see the road and trajectory we're on, and this is kind of like providing a solution, a game plan, a roadmap, if you will, for a solution, which gives you hope. And it also gives you the ability to prepare for what's coming. And so you can learn from this case study that we're going to go over. And what does that do? That prepares you, and which is part of that, a story of hope, rather than doom and gloom that we all get kind of caught up into sometimes, like thinking that, how far off track our government is, and there's really no solution, and these kinds of things. Well, actually, I believe there is. And being an agorist, or agorist, however you want to pronounce it, agorism, counter economics. So let's explore what a parallel society is, and economies, and what emerges out of an oppressive regime or state. Um, and we're going to go to circa 1980. And too bad we don't have some good 1980 music going, right? No, you
Mhm.
can't do
They
that.
can't do it. Yeah, they'll ding you for that.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about Romania, and I got it here on the map for some of us people in America. We just don't know where it is, but you can see it's just south of Ukraine. It borders Hungary, Bulgaria, Serbia, and you can kind of get it's an Eastern European country. And our main villain, every story's got a villain, right?
Dun,
Nikolai Ceausescu.
dun.
Nikolai Ceausescu. I know I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but that's the best I can do. My apologies. Um, and I sort of apologize, because he was a bad dude. he was certainly a dictator. There's in the bottom center is his wife, Elena. But it's an interesting story in that if you're driving, I don't want you to close your eyes, but some of you can close your eyes, and I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're living in a country where almost everything is controlled. What you read, what you watch, what you can buy, even what you think, kind of like the thought police, right? But no matter, this is the beautiful part, no matter how hard a government will try to suppress its people, something always happens. An underground society will emerge. Now, sometimes governments can stomp them out, but in other cases, that underground society just keeps growing and growing and becomes a current of change. And so today we're going to look at how the Romanian people resisted the control of a horrible dictator, an authoritative regime, and they did this by creating a parallel system. And so let's dig into this. First of all, Ceausescu or Nikolai or whatever, however you Ceausescu, however you want to pronounce his name, he severe repression, typical dictator, right? Censorship was key for him, and maintaining what the people could see, look, read, watch, and he had his secret police. You've got to have that surveillance state, right? You got to find out who your distractors are and who's talking evil about the government. And so that surveillance was huge, as it is with all dictators. He wanted to isolate Romania, especially for the West. He didn't want any kind of Western values or film or music to come into his country. He didn't want the people to learn what was out there. He wanted to keep Romania isolated, even from the Soviet Union for the most part. And by doing so, he also crippled his country. And it's such a beautiful country if you've ever been there or seen it. But he had to ban Western media. And he wanted to make sure that even the young minds of the Romanian children in school, learned that communism and its form of socialism was the best, and that they should have national spirit for, their country and patriotism towards Ceausescu. It's just horrible. But that was what the people were living under, right? So, but what happened was an underground culture started emerging, which is what grew out of that culture, was a political parallel society and an economic one and a cultural parallel society as well. And underground networks started to get developed and grow, and they were even smuggling in Western VHS tapes. And we're talking about the 80s, and right?
Yeah.
And there's this guy, he became very popular in the country, Tudor Zamfir, I think was his name. And he was a big smuggler of VHS tapes. And
like
people
just current movies and stuff, or more new stuff? Okay, just to share the culture of.
Right. Well, they were hungry for that, right?
I see.
They're hungry for, because their choices were very limited. It was very censored. So they were getting these bootleg copies and smuggled in copies of Rocky and Rambo and things like this from, that we would kind of take for granted or something.
Yeah.
Well, that was last year's movie. I'm not going to watch that. We're not going to rent that at Blockbuster. Some of you will remember Blockbuster. But for them, it was a big deal. And there were so few of them, they would watch them. They would have these underground viewing parties, like, shh, on the down low, come over to my house, Lisa. Bring your family. I got Rocky 2. Wow, But what people started realizing is, their grocery shelves were pretty bare, and maybe there was only one type of bread, and maybe if they're lucky, there was only one type of cut of meat, or maybe it was just hamburger or whatever. So they didn't have a lot of choices. But in the Hollywood movies, your main character walks into a grocery store. Well, these Romanians are watching this VHS tape, right? And they're going, oh, look at the store. It's full of meat. They got chicken and turkey and hamburger and pork, and look at all those different cuts. Look at all the different breads they had to choose from. Look at the cereal line. The cereal aisle as long as you can see, right? For us, it was like no big deal, but for them, it was huge. It was huge. They could see what was how other people were living. Now, a lot of them didn't believe, oh, that's just Hollywood, you know. But as time progressed and more of these videos came out, and they saw all these different types of cars and the roadways and the buildings and clean sidewalks and whatever, you know, even in the dystopian movies of the time, they still saw that those people were actually had a lot to be grateful for compared
Mhm.
to what they were seeing. And this really fostered a desire to bring about change. And what was really neat about it was this these private screenings and this even radio, even music and lyrics and poetry was bubbling up, you know, in the underground, um, because they realized, hey, we don't have to live this way. There's a better alternative, right? And Western radio and television signals. Remember these, Lisa? The rabbit ears,
Oh, yes. Mhm.
right? Okay, well, that's what they had. And broadcasts from other countries were coming over into their country. And, you know, shortwave radios were being smuggled in these kinds of things so they could tune into what was happening in the Western world or maybe Western music. Um, and learning the lyrics. Maybe they didn't know the lyrics, or other people in the underground were translating these lyrics on music they weren't allowed to listen to, and they're reading this stuff and they're going, wow. So it was, like they say, politics is downstream of culture,
Mm.
and this was having a big effect on Romania. And it was all brought about by a parallel system, a parallel society, a parallel economy, a black market of goods. Even simple things like medicines that we might take for granted were in short supply, so they had to be smuggled in. Cosmetics, cigarettes, foodstuffs, you name it. Even gold, silver, copper, jewelry, these kinds of things. Foreign currencies were smuggled in and were flowing through this underground economy, and it was growing and getting stronger and stronger despite what the government was trying to do to stomp it out or ban it or confiscate things, threatening individuals if they were participating in these black markets. It just wasn't working because the necessary means to survive just weren't as available. And even home production became real popular. Like, you know, hey Lisa, your son's having his birthday. I tell you what, you know, we make birthday cakes. Just bring
Mm.
me 2 eggs, and
Yeah.
then I'll go over here and they'll bring me flour, and then his wife's birthday, I'll make you a cake. You just bring me flour, and
Mhm.
this bartering, and so home production of common goods became very popular, and that was also part of the you know parallel economy of sorts. Um, and you see that and hear about that in Venezuela. Like I remember reading about that on some input, you know, some postings on Den.Social. So the impact of the black market was huge. But the big takeaway here is they realized it didn't have to be like this. That's what they were learning by watching these Western movies. Even information from the Soviet Union. Some people in the Soviet Union had better things than they did. Um, and you know, so you can link a parallel society to a revolution, is what you really can do here, because people start having an alternative, and they're building safety nets, is what they're doing. they're
Mm.
they're putting together a security blanket, which is a parallel economy, right? And so from that, more protests started rising in Romania. And in the final days of the regime, he gave this epic final speech. Okay, and I'm going to set the tone, or set the scenario.
Okay.
He was building this giant palace or capitol building, right? Kind of like, think of the White House times 20 in size, or whatever. And I'll show you a picture of it here in a minute. And It was supposed to be bring about national pride and patriotism to the Romanian way and our artisans of what they can build. But it was really on the backs of the people, right?
Mhm.
And he was having all this unrest that was happening. And so he said, I'm going to give this epic speech and I'm going to demand everybody that's a government worker come to the giant square to hear my speech. And because state TV and radio, you're going to cover it live on television.
So they had no option. If you're gonna turn your TV on, that's all that will be on.
And it's it's a national holiday. Everyone is not
Everyone.
going to work. They're going to watch me speak.
Mhm.
So it's an epic speech. He set the tone, right, for this, and you know, he is a powerful man, and a lot of people feared him. He was brutal. Kind of think of Kim Jong Un
Mhm.
from North Korea. So here's his big epic speech. It was in December, just before Christmas, and he's giving this speech. And guess what, Lisa? He says, I'm going to give you $100. Well, it's a liu, whatever their currency was, 100 liu or something like that. Monthly raise, 100 liu monthly raise. And people are like, meh, you know, they weren't impressed. And he was saying, communism is the best way. And I've brought about our country's independence from, and all of these things. And people started booing and jeering. The great, powerful dictator starts getting booed and he's shocked. He's taken back. It's never happened before, right? And it's this big, epic speech that he's going to calm the crowds. He says,
Like a
it's been
slap in the face to them for him to say, like, "Oh, here's your." It was like
$100.
when, uh, what was it that oh gosh, I'm blanking. Something horrible happened and they gave him $700 and then we're giving Ukraine all this money, you know?
Oh, right, right, right.
I don't know what that
But
so
it was a disaster, wasn't it? Was it
yes.
Maui? Maui.
Oh, I think it was Maui,
Maui
yes.
Towers. Right.
$700 for your burned up house, and meanwhile, we give Ukraine all this money.
Right, right.
Mhm,
Well, it's kind of like that.
mhm.
But it's on national live TV and national radio, and they're picking up the boos and
Oh,
the pushback on his speech. And this was December 16th, 1989, in Bucharest, Romania, and it was on Palace Square, as you can see right there, which is now called Revolution Square.
ah,
And this broadcast live was a shock to everybody because he was getting pushback. He even tried to stop and quiet the crowd, and they didn't even listen to him.
wow.
And then he froze. And there he is on national state television, all the channels on national television and on the radio. And he's frozen. He doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know what to say. He's shocked. Why? Because he was so disconnected from the people.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yes, it
Um,
did.
and his rallying cry speech was nothing but that. And he didn't even complete it. He was so shocked. And so this was unprecedented. And what had happened was the Romanians had their safety net. They had their parallel system. They
Mhm.
knew how the rest of the world was living, and it didn't have to be this way. And for the first time, the crowd and the people had courage to stand up to this evil dictator who did unspeakable crimes to the Romanian people. Um, and it was shocking. It was really shocking. Now that was December 16th, 1989. He tried to, for the next week, he really tried to settle the people down.
Mhm.
But protests, after everyone saw this, were growing and growing and growing. And so, like I said, this was a stunned reaction for him. And he and the military and the police started falling away from him and started siding with the Romanian people
Mm.
because they could compare apples to apples. Sometimes they could get things under the black market a lot easier and maybe even cheaper, more efficient than their own government's,
Wow.
goods. right?
Mm.
And he lost all respect. So he tried to flee the country in a helicopter. The helicopter pilots, they land. They don't even get him out of the country because they're feared they're going to get shot down.
Mhm.
And they capture him. And there's a quick trial. These are the images of the actual place where this trial was. Just some government building, like a library or
A
something,
pop-up table.
almost in the middle of nowhere. Right
Wow.
here's this grand giant dictator Ceausescu with his wife Elena, right there being tried as military tribunal, and it only lasts a few hours. He's found guilty, and from that courtroom, they march him out to the courtroom and they execute him and his wife.
Oh my God.
3 days later, on Christmas Day, December 25th. So on December 22nd, he and his wife tried to flee the capital by helicopter, and they were captured that day. 3 days later, he was charged with genocide, corruption, and undermining the Romanian economy. Undermining the Romanian economy because why? Partially because they had a parallel system that they could compare it to. The people knew how other
They
people were
knew
living.
how much they were being, yeah, taken advantage of because there was another way to do things. There was
Right.
another option. Wow.
Horrible, horrible man. And there's his grand palace that he gave his speech from, which was really supposed to be a government state building. Crazy, right?
Built with the
Executed.
people's money while they were starving and
Right. And struggling
yeah.
and these kinds of things. Um, Elitism, separated from the people, not being grounded, not having ear to the people, not understanding that what the people are going through, the plight of the people, not listening to them. It all sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Oh, very.
And they're both shot right there. It's a museum now, and it's crazy. So the lessons are basically this: that parallel systems can form a resistance, which can bring about change or revolution, and it can even be a peaceful one. You
Yeah.
know, they start from grassroots, and they're cultural as well as economical. It's social. It's a social parallel system, is really what gets built. Because people say no, you can almost think of the Amish as a parallel society, right?
Right,
That's
right.
what they
They
are.
choose to opt out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a cultural war as well. And so cultural wars are important as well. And culture's upstream from politics. So to win a war, you also have to win the culture war.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily by who's the loudest. you know Sometimes we think that the woke are the loudest because they don't have the numbers, but they're winning the war, or they were. But so Romania really can teach us a valuable lesson and give us hope. And so the last piece I want to tell you is this: let's compare Romania to today in America. And I think the audience is going to get this real quickly. You can draw a lot of parallels.
Right.
In Romania, he was controlling the media, right? It was state-run, radio and television. He demanded and censored what the people could watch and not watch. And today we have an alternative media. We don't have to watch ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox,
Mhm.
CNN. We can go to alternative channels. Our alternative media and independent podcasters and your channel and others are VHS tapes of Romania.
Right.
Isn't that
And we
amazing?
know that they're telling different stories than what
Right.
the mainstream media is telling. I know even today they were starting to show the because people are using like live stream on
Mhm.
X. And so some of the stories about like people price gouging in the hurricane areas for
Mhm.
gas and different things, like they don't want those stories to come out. Well, they're coming out, so there is that alternative media
Right.
of we the people.
Right. And we search it out. We find truths and we talk about them, and
Mhm.
other people listen and they learn about the truth that had they just looked at on Google, they would have never found, right?
Right.
So we are essentially creating a parallel society, and some of us don't even know that we're participating in that parallel society by using, say, pre-search, or using a different browser, and not using, say, Google or whatever. We're using alternatives to what is maybe not state run, kind of a fascist, where the government and the corporations are together, like what we saw with the 2020 elections, and with the great infection, where the government was colluding with Facebook, or Meta, and and the others.
Right.
So we are building, and we are talking, and we are growing our parallel society, our parallel culture, our parallel economy. When you throw in cryptocurrency and these kinds of things, you see the parallels, excuse the pun, of Romania and America.
Yeah.
And we vote with our wallets. We don't just vote at the polling station, in March and November. We vote with our wallets as well. And Bud Light comes to mind, and you're enacting change. That's agorism. That's a form of agorism. I would call it agorism light, but it is just
Right.
that. Agorism
Yeah.
dark is true black markets, and more on the side of anarchy. Um, but not Molotov cocktails and wearing black in the street. But government crackdown, like using the SEC to come down on things like Dragon Chain and other cryptos, is Ceausescu. It's the Romanian government, and that regime is what we're facing right now with our DOJ, and the FBI, is the Romania's secret police. The video we played on your channel 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
right? um, of the FBI not even wanting to tell him his name. See that it's there's some
Well, and
pushback.
then freezing people's bank accounts, freezing conservative bank accounts. I mean, all of that stuff. Yeah, that's all part of it.
Public dissatisfaction. Your Romanians were having hard times economically. We're not there yet. We're close. Many of us are
Yeah,
not
but
all, but
if the ports do go on strike starting
yeah,
tomorrow, that will exponentially put this in play.
that's right. December's going to be ugly, because who knows, those ports, some of the Christmas presents or distribution
Oh, yeah.
is going to be stuck in containers,
Yeah.
and they're going to get to the store too late for November's Black Friday, right?
Mhm.
Um, so public dissatisfaction is part of it. Our elected officials that are not listening to we the people and listen to the lobbyists. We the people said no more money to Ukraine, but they did it anyway.
Yeah.
They're disconnected. They're not listening to the people, just like Ceausescu was. He was not listening to his people. He was above them, and just like our elites in DC. But it's not just DC. I mean, even the state house can be that way, and
Mhm.
even the mayor in some places are, or you
Or
know,
city council. Yeah.
that's right.
Mhm.
Look at school board. School board with some of the woke BS that they're forcing down on our children's education. And there you go. I would call, it's not really a black market in the U.S., but homeschooling
Yeah.
is a part of that
The
parallel
parallel.
society,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
it's
making a
growing.
difference, and it's
Mhm.
growing. That's right, from government schools. So our censorship is just like Romania. So I guess I want to say, buckle up, buttercups, because protests and riots, crackdowns are in our future. It's just inevitable. Um, and here's our call to action, our conclusion. Ultimately, Romania threw out their dictator. He got what he just deserved. And that is a blueprint for us, that there is hope. Our parallel society, our parallel systems, our parallel culture to the woke or whatever, can lead to change. And at who knows at what level or how far we might go, but it will provide us courage. It will, by being preppers, by preparing for, like I said, buckle up, buttercup, you
Mhm.
know, is preparing for those bad times, those hard times, or riots, or protests, or strikes, or who knows what that's going to come, say November 6th, or whatever.
Right. Whatever the
So
magic day is, or there may be many multiple days.
yes.
You know,
So
this we don't know how it would
yeah.
progress.
So take heed to what Romania taught us from 1989 or the 1980s. They have given us a blueprint. And, alternative media is our VHS. And that gives me hope. It really does.
Yeah,
Um, and I last to say again, our call to action is vote with your wallet, support parallel systems, support parallel economies, support people with like-minded. Don't feed the vampires, right?
yes,
Grow your grow, become more independent from the state and build your own security blanket, build your own safety net. Don't rely on your government, just like the Romanians didn't. And that gave them courage to stand up when their leader spoke and said, no, we can do better than this, and it doesn't have to be this way. So there you have it.
absolutely. And one way you can do that is by joining Den.Social
Yes.
and having an alternative media and social media outlet. And you can have a great community there. You can join us on the Mighty Lair and post comments and replies to I am's posts that are so thought provoking. You can, join your own posts on there. You can submit all kinds of things, and you're part of then that community and that economy or parallel system as well.
That's right.
We'll also have this week. I'm going to be off camera a little bit because we are traveling to Westwoods. So there's another parallel. You can join the community there, meet us in person. Go to clintwestwood.net for all the information on the meetup. And we will be in Metamora, Illinois on October 4th. And it's a free meetup. It's for freedom lovers and crypto hodlers and silver stackers and people that want to homeschool their kids and people that want to hear about these kind of ideas and be around other like-minded people. So we'd love to see any and all of you there as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wished I could go. I went last week to Chicago. So
Well, I know.
I can't make it another one. The
I
following week is going to be, I think, New Orleans.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll
So
be
we'll
good.
see how that goes.
Yeah. So, and I know some people in the chat, Mark, saying, I'll see you there. And some of our friends, I'm really excited to see a lot of our friends. We're going to have a great turnout.
That's going to be great. Wish I could be there. I'll be there in spirit for sure.
Yes. And we'll be streaming from there. So we'll be able to check in with everybody in the live chat as well. But really excited about that. Also I just found this out.
Yeah.
So the Las Vegas shooting, did you know that tomorrow is the anniversary of the Las Vegas shooting?
No, I did not.
Another October 1st. And Julian Assange is supposed to testify. Another biggie.
Wow. Huge.
So,
huge. Wow.
Well,
if a lot of things are happening, it's a wild 2024.
It is. It's
buckle up, buttercups.
Yes. Buckle up. Uncle Cliff always said it would happen on a Tuesday. We'll see.